everyone, and welcome to the TMF Response for Setup and Maintenance. Really excited to have such a large audience today. We've been doing this session. I do a similar topic in an all-day session. So what you're going to get today is kind of like at a 30,000-foot flyover. That's kind of what I should have added on for the title. I'm going to jump right in. What we want to do is we want to talk about the changing regulatory climate because things have certainly changed in the last 5 years. I love doing this session because it doesn't matter if you've been in the industry 30 years or if you've been in the industry 3 months. TMF is new. We don't look at TMFs today the way we did 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. So because the regulatory climate has changed so much. And so I want to talk a little bit today about what's driving the changes in how we manage our TMFs. We'll talk about the required components of a TMF and some policy recommendations for managing your TMF. And actually what I'm going to do, I don't really believe in giving companies SOPs because I really think each company has to establish their own practices and their own process. So what I'm going to do is talk to you about some of what I think are the key topics that should be included in your TMF policy or procedural documents. And we'll also talk about some maintenance and quality control around your TMF. So just by a show of hands, how many of you are using an electronic TMF in your company? So put your hand up if you're, okay, I see a green check. Green check or hand up if you're using an eTMF. Okay, and then if you're using a paper TMF, let me just clear that. And then if you're using a paper TMF. Okay, so a lot of you are using a paper TMF. Okay, great, that's good to know then. Thank you. Okay, actually, before I start, I guess I took my introduction slide out. Just a little bit about me. I know you had my bio, but I've been in the business for a long time, 25 plus years. So I'm one of those people who've been in the business before TMF was such a big hot topic. I do consulting. I spent 15 years in pharma in early development, and one of our responsibilities actually in my clinical department was maintaining the TMF. So I remember the old school way of maintaining a TMF. And then I've been on my own as a consultant for the last 11 years, actually, and I work with organizations, small and large, in setting up quality management systems, and a large part of the work that we do is in TMF. I work on the reference model group for the TMF, and I actually led the revisions to Zone 4, which is the ethics committee review. So I've been in this TMF workspace quite a bit for the last several years, and I'm really excited about where we're headed as an industry around TMF. Just a little bit, this classic line that everybody's heard in the business, but it's really, really true when it comes to your TMF. If it isn't documented, it didn't happen. Or, let me restate that to say, is if you don't have access to the documentation, it didn't happen. So let's just talk about the rationale for the TMF to start with. Basically, your trial master file should tell the story of your trial. It's kind of like the diary of everything that happened in your trial from beginning to end. Okay? It's referred to in the Code of Federal Regulations. It's referred to in the EU directive. It's in our ICH guidelines. It's really in all of the regulatory agencies. There is some expectation around the trial master file. Now, not every regulatory body uses the word TMF, but in some way they refer to this collection of documents. So by definition, from the European directive from 2005, it's a standalone set of documentation that does not require additional explanation from the associated sponsor or site staff. It basically supports the story of what happened during your study. I think the key word here is it should stand on its own. That means if the entire study team wins the lottery and goes to the Caribbean, a private island somewhere, that TMF can still tell the story of what happened with the study. It's also known as the collection of documentation that allows the conduct of the clinical trial, the integrity of the trial data, and the compliance of the trial with GCP to be evaluated. This is really important in terms of your regulatory inspection. Your trial master file should allow an inspector to evaluate whether your study was conducted in compliance with GCP, and if the data has the GCP integrity to make your compound approvable or your device approvable. It's your output from all of your functional areas. Now, I'm really excited to hear that Karen has so many different functional area groups in the room with her, because we used to think of the TMF as kind of clinical's responsibility, but we now know that TMF goes well beyond clinical, and it really is a multidisciplinary set of records. So what are essential documents? Because all of us have always heard the term essential documents, but really what are they? Well, they're basically exactly what I said the TMF is. It permits evaluation of the trial. It permits quality of data to be assessed. It looks at compliance to GCP and certainly references all regulatory requirements. And so our essential documents is really our TMF. Now, lots of companies refer to it different ways. I hear people say, oh, I've collected my essential documents related to device release or to drug release. But essential documents are really everything that tell the story or the TMF. So lots of you remember, and probably many of you have been living with this this metal file box that holds your TMF. But we also know that it's gotten much bigger than this. And so when it was just E6, it was really easy. You could put it in a couple of drawers or a couple of shelves on the wall. But now that we know the TMF is much more than E6, it's becoming very complicated to maintain.